Step into Westeros at a time most fans overlook, where dragons are already gone, and breaking down exactly where this story fits in the massive Game of Thrones timeline, how it connects to House of the Dragon, and why Dunk and Egg's journey might be more important than it looks at first glance.
I heard of him.
What is A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms about? A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is based on George R.R. Martin's beloved Dunk and Egg novellas, beginning with The Hedge Knight. The story follows Ser Duncan the Tall, a wandering hedge knight with no lands, no titles, and no powerful family backing him. Of right and wrong. Along the road, he meets a strange bald boy named Egg, who insists on becoming his squire. What Dunk doesn't initially realize is that Egg is actually Prince Aegon Targaryen, a member of the ruling royal family, traveling incognito to learn what life is truly like in the Seven Kingdoms. Rather than focusing on massive wars or apocalyptic threats, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms zooms in on everyday Westeros, where tournaments, feuds, grudges, and political tensions simmer just beneath the surface. This is a world still haunted by past rebellions, and quietly heading toward future disasters, even if most people don't realize it yet.
It's like a night, but sadder.
The exact year A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms begins. A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms begins in 209 AC, meaning 209 years after Aegon's conquest. This places the series in a deceptively calm period in Westerosi history. The Iron Throne is ruled by King Aerys I Targaryen, a scholarly and detached king who leaves most of the actual ruling to his hand, Bloodraven, also known as Brynden Rivers. While Westeros is not currently engulfed in all-out war, the scars of the past are still fresh, especially the memory of the Blackfyre Rebellion, which occurred only about 13 years earlier. This context is crucial because the Blackfyre Rebellion permanently fractured House Targaryen. Bastard sons of King Aegon IV challenged the legitimacy of the main royal line, and although the rebellion failed, its consequences linger for decades. Many noble houses still quietly support the Blackfyre claim, and the tension between loyalty and treason hangs over the realm like a shadow. Dunk and Egg stumbled directly into this uneasy political environment, even if Dunk himself barely understands the larger game being played.
Deserted the noble houses of Westeros!
The tournament at Ashford Meadow and its importance. On the surface, this seems like a classic Westerosi tourney, a chance for knights to earn glory, gold, and recognition. For Dunk, it represents an opportunity to rise above his status as a poor hedge knight and prove himself among true nobles. However, the tournament quickly reveals how dangerous even peaceful gatherings can be in Westeros. Members of House Targaryen, Baratheon, and other powerful families attend the tourney, and their rivalries turn a simple competition into a deadly political flashpoint. This event perfectly represents the era in which A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is set. The realm is technically at peace, but violence is never far away, and one insult or challenge can change lives forever. The tournament also highlights how power works in this era, where birth and blood matter far more than honor or justice.
Aerion would like your head.
How future seasons fit into the timeline. Season 1 adapts The Hedge Knight and remains firmly rooted in 209 AC. Season 2 is expected to adapt The Sworn Sword, which takes place roughly a year and a half later, around 210 to 211 AC. By this point, Dunk and Egg have grown closer, and the political tensions surrounding them become more explicit, especially involving land disputes, old loyalties, and the quiet influence of House Blackfyre supporters. Season 3 is expected to adapt The Mystery Knight, set in 212 AC. This story dives even deeper into the long-term consequences of the Blackfyre Rebellion and shows how fragile the peace truly is. By this stage, Egg is more aware of his identity and his destiny, while Dunk is increasingly pulled into conflicts that are far larger than himself. Although George R.R. Martin plans to write more Dunk and Egg stories, future seasons of the show would likely rely on Martin's outlines, continuing to explore this critical but underrepresented era of Westerosi history.
Dracarys.
How far A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is from Game of Thrones. One of the most common questions fans ask is how close this story is to Game of Thrones. The answer is that A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is set roughly 89 to 90 years before the events of Game of Thrones Season 1, which begins in 298 AC. By the time Robert Baratheon travels to Winterfell to ask Ned Stark to become Hand of the King, the world has changed dramatically. The Iron Throne is no longer held by the Targaryens. Dragons are believed to be extinct, and magic has faded into myth. The political chaos of Game of Thrones is fueled by the long-term decay of the system that still exists in Dunk and Egg's time. Many of the mistakes, compromises, and betrayals that shape Robert's reign and the War of the Five Kings can be traced back to decisions made during the Targaryen era. Dunk and Egg live in a Westeros where the Targaryens still rule, but their authority is already weakening. The seeds of rebellion, distrust, and collapse are already planted, even if they won't fully bloom for nearly a century. How it connects to House of the Dragon. A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is also deeply connected to House of the Dragon, though the tone and scale are completely different. House of the Dragon spans from 101 AC to 129 AC and focuses on the Dance of the Dragons, a devastating civil war that nearly wipes out House Targaryen and leads to the extinction of dragons in Westeros. By the time Dunk and Egg are traveling the roads, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms takes place about 75 to 80 years after the end of the Dance of the Dragons. The dragons are gone, and their absence has fundamentally changed the balance of power. Without dragons, the Targaryens are no longer gods among men. They are simply another ruling family trying to hold together a fractured kingdom through politics, alliances, and force.
The trauma of the dance still echoes through history. Many noble houses lost ancestors, lands, or influence during that war, and resentment toward the Targaryens remains. This explains why rebellions like the Blackfyre Uprising gained so much support, and why the realm remains unstable despite appearing peaceful on the surface. An era without dragons or magic. One of the most fascinating aspects of A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is that it exists in a Westeros largely devoid of magic. Dragons are extinct, prophecies are not openly discussed, and supernatural forces are barely acknowledged by the common people. This is a grounded era where steel, loyalty, and survival matter more than destiny. This absence of magic makes Dunk's story feel more personal and more dangerous in a different way. Without dragons to burn armies or prophecies to guide heroes, every decision carries real consequences. People die because of pride, cruelty, and ambition, not because of ancient curses or mythical creatures. This grounded tone highlights how fragile the realm truly is, even without supernatural threats. Why this timeline matters so much. Although A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms may seem smaller in scope, its timeline is incredibly important to the overall story of Westeros. It shows the slow decline of House Targaryen, the consequences of unresolved rebellions, and the everyday realities of life under feudal rule. Dunk and Egg's journey bridges the gap between the dragon-dominated past of House of the Dragon and the crumbling political landscape of Game of Thrones. This era reminds us that history is shaped not only by kings and queens, but by ordinary people trying to survive in a dangerous world. Dunk is not a chosen hero, and Egg is not yet a legendary king. They are simply two travelers navigating a realm on the brink of transformation, unaware of how much their actions will matter in the long run. So, where A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms belongs. A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms sits perfectly between House of the Dragon and Game of Thrones, both chronologically and thematically. It captures Westeros at a crossroads, where the Age of Dragons is long gone, but the Age of Chaos has not yet fully arrived. This unique position allows the series to explore honor, power, and identity in a way no other Game of Thrones story has before. By understanding its place in the timeline, it becomes clear that Dunk and Egg's story is not a side quest, but a vital chapter in the history of Westeros. It shows how the world slowly moves from legend to decay, setting the stage for everything that follows.
our nerdy thoughts. And that's where A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms fits into the long and complicated history of Westeros. It's a story set between dragons and destruction in an era that feels quieter on the surface but is just as dangerous underneath. Dunk and Egg may not be fighting for the Iron Throne, but their journey shows us how the Seven Kingdoms slowly became the world we eventually see in Game of Thrones. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the timeline and want more breakdowns of Westeros history, characters, and hidden connections, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss what's coming next. Until next time, keep questioning the lore, keep exploring Westeros, and I'll see you in the next one.
Now what the heck, I'll laugh anyway.